Hey guys, People here. Today we're going to be talking about AI games, what to get out of them. Primarily going to be geared towards new players, but I'm going to open with a section on more experienced players who might be playing the AI now just due to the presence of the Bureau and those daily missions. It's relatively easy to grind those out playing against the AI. Usually these matches take 5 or 6 minutes and you can complete them in relatively short order, and more likely than not, you're going to win. I don't think I've lost any of these since the Bureau started, and I think I've lost 2 in my history. One of them was... whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so if you're in that situation when you're playing the Bureau, you consider yourself a competent player, and you're not really playing the AI just to get experience, I would still take the time to, rather than just kind of horse off purely, which you can do that as well, but take the time to pick something. What do I need to work on? Map awareness. All right, let's take up map awareness. And then since you're playing these games where you're going against these computer players that aren't really in a position to kill you that readily, you can spend 90% of the match staring at the map. I'm only looking at the map. Okay, reloaded. Aim the shot quickly. Fire the guns. Then go back to looking at the map. This is a good environment to practice something like map awareness. Or something along the lines of more complicated aiming. Let's say you want to get better at your aiming. Decide, okay, I'm only going to shoot ships in their front turrets for the entirety of the game. That's going to be my aim point. I want to see how many times I can hit these ships in the front turret. And so that's going to change how your lead's going to be on these targets as compared to if you're trying to hit them in the middle of the ship, let's say. So there's various things that you can work on, and since you're going to be grinding these games out anyways, might as well take the time to actually try and improve. Now, I don't think experienced players going against the bots, as we're going to talk about here in the next section of this video, I don't think there's a lot for a lot of players to learn playing against the bots. New players, there's things that the bots do positively that you can actually learn from. Surprisingly, some of the bots actually play better than a lot of the humans when it comes to very certain aspects of the game. But there's a lot that they do wrong as well. And for those of you that are new, I'm going to point out what you might be observing in these AI games where you might be thinking to yourself, this is a good way to learn the mechanics of the game. And I wouldn't disagree with you there. But there's also plenty of pitfalls in terms of bad habits that you could potentially find yourself getting used to and then incorporating them into your game, which is going to set you back. But just to tie up for the more experienced players, if you're going the route where you're going to be using these AI matches to get rid of the dailies as quickly as possible, take the time to just identify 2 or 3 things that you can improve on in your game, and then set up a system where you're in this kind of controlled environment. There's not a lot of threats to your health as long as you're not playing too fast and loose. And then just go ahead and take the time to work on them. And that's hopefully going to be a good payoff for you there. As for new players, well, there's a couple things that the robots do very well. Number one, it's typically angling. Now, as I begin this, we've gotten into a position where we're shooting this Fuso on the side. That's not an example of good angling, but typically, and if you're new to the game, you might not understand what I mean by angling. Angling is pointing either the nose or the rear of your ship basically at the ship that's shooting at you. If the shells hit you in an angled position, they're going to bounce off your ship, or they're going to encounter thicker armor due to the fact that its armor is turned diagonally internally, so it actually has to pass through more armor to penetrate. So basically, arm wrangling is a key concept of this game, and one that the AI will do pretty well, especially out of the gate. Normally they come straight at you, and those ships are all kind of pointed at you. So you might be thinking, well, I'm able to hit these guys, but it doesn't look like I'm doing a lot of damage. Now, in this particular game that we're looking at, I've found a position where I can shoot these guys. I've created crossfires, which is another core idea of this game. You want to, in terms of your own positioning, you want to be looking on the map, finding opportunities to shoot the ships when they're showing you the full broadside, when they're flatly presenting their sides to you like this. That's when you can get a lot of damage, especially with those AP shells. So, this what I'm talking about isn't necessarily reflected on the screen at the moment. But usually, when you're going against these bots, they're going to kind of be coming straight at you. And surprisingly enough, that's an example of good angling. So if you want to pick up on a few pointers from these robots, look at how they're positioning the ships in the water, especially early on in the game before you spread out. If you're kind of lined up directly at them, they're pointed directly at you. That's considered good arm or angling. Now, what they do with that is anyone's guess. It usually goes south for them very quickly. But anyway, I thought we would point that out as something that you can get, you can pick up from the AI's behavior. And you can also point to them playing the positions that they spawn in pretty well. They don't tend to spawn behind B and then all of a sudden decide as soon as the match starts, I gotta go play C because fill in the blank. I've never heard a compelling reason why a ship would abandon the spawn that they come into the game by, but you see it constantly, and it's usually just conceding advantages to the team. But the AI, the computer ships, they tend to just, again, go straight forward, and so they tend to cover the positions that they're spawned by very well. Now, we talk about positioning and so on and so forth. Pretty much in all my videos, it's very important. So I'm not sitting here saying there's never a time where leaving the position that you spawn by is the correct play, because often that is the case. But usually when you see people abandoning the caps or the flanks right off the bat of the game, there's really no justifiable reason for that other than I don't know. I still can't think of any. So those are kind of the two things that the AI does well, in my opinion. And if you have other examples, be sure to leave them in the comments, because I'm sure I'm probably forgetting some things that could be helpful to new players. But now I want to kind of talk about, as we got another game here, the Boise, what do they do incorrectly? But if you want to keep an eye on the angling early on in this game, just note as the enemy ships come into range, they're pretty much going to be pointed directly at us, which again is an example of good armor angling, rather than what you see inexperienced human players do, which is sit there fully broadside and then just get deleted by people that can aim. Anyway, what do the AI do that will potentially, if you try and learn from the AI, okay, this is how the game's played, you're going to pick up these bad habits and they're going to be poor. Charging forward. Now, they charge forward relentlessly as the AI. And they pretty much, I don't know exactly what their goal is in mind, but they kind of sail directly forward from when they spawn until they are dead. So, charging forward, moving forward, often not a bad idea. You want to get into position to shoot the enemy ships, of course. People that back up when the match starts and are out of position for the entire game are even worse than players that charge forward. But if you get too far forward, then you're just putting yourself into crossfires, which again, if you think back to that Königsberg game we just looked at, we were in positions to shoot ships in the side, and that's because they kept pushing forward, and we got more and more access to those broadsides, which in turn puts them in greater danger. So moving too far forward too early, not a good idea. And also what they do when they're continuing to move forward, they're not sailing away from the people that are shooting at you. Generally, it doesn't really matter what class of ship you're in. If you're engaged with a fight with someone that's shooting at you, salvo after salvo, generally moving away from them is going to put you in an advantage when it comes to that fight. You'd never see the AI, I have yet to see the AI ever sail away from someone that's shooting at them. So moving forward relentlessly, not generally a good idea. Again, I don't know why they're trying to do it, but here's a good example of the second point. The Kagero, the destroyer play that I see out of the AI is atrocious, and then unfortunately I see other players that are probably very brand new to the game watching the enemy destroyers, and then they try and mimic this. What these guys try and do is and the cruisers do it too, they try and get you like half a kilometer away and then torp you point blank, which almost always you're going to die doing that, especially once you start playing against human players that can actually aim a little bit better than the AI. But that is not how torpedo play should work. That's not what you should be setting out to do when you're trying to torp someone. Once in a while, yeah, you'll find yourself in a situation where torping them basically point blank range is your only option, but that's never what you should be setting out to do. So That's something to look forward to. Normally, when you want to get the torps involved, you want to stay undetected, which that's the blue ring on your map there. You want to keep the enemies outside of that, remain undetected, launch the torps from cover, and that'll be much more profitable for you there. So kind of a really bad habit that I see the AI teaching new players for when it comes to torpedoing. Not focusing common targets. I don't know what these AIs are really doing. They don't really shoot on reload, and they don't have any sort of purpose in terms of what they're doing. But I don't see them trying to focus down targets that are getting low. Generally, you always want to be scanning both your own team's health and the enemy team's health. And if you see someone that's low, that means your team's piling on them and you want to start shooting them too. It doesn't matter if you get the kill or not. We're trying to get the enemy ships off the board. The fewer ships they have, the less damage they can do, the more likely you are to win. And here, just to close out the chop I have, that's very well angled. If I had AP loaded and I hit them in the sides of the ship, I'm going to do 0 damage on that. Now I'm using HE and I'm shooting into the superstructure, so I'm going to get some damage. But that right there kind of sums up what the AI does very well, and something that new players can learn from the AI. So anyway, that's kind of a goofy video. I don't know if anyone's going to have any interest in this one or not, but I thought since I've been playing the AI a little bit more, maybe we'd talk about it and you guys would enjoy it. So if you did like it, please hit the thumbs up. New to the channel, consider subscribing. Questions, comments, leave them below, and we'll see y'all later. All right, peace.